Hi, everyone. I wanted to welcome you to this evening's webinar. My name is Rachel Sanders, and on behalf of the Virginia United Methodist Church Board of Communications, we would like to thank you for joining us for our digital communication webinar. We're very excited to have Kelly Tracy with United Methodist Communications joining us today from her home in Atlanta. Kelly has a background in higher education and curriculum planning and facilitation. And her presentation will focus on how churches of all sizes can leverage digital communications to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. She will share best practices for simple, engaging email and SMS communications, plus give guidance for efficiently using social media to share your church's story with a wider audience, and how you can achieve all of this on a tight budget with minimal staffing. During the webinar, if you have a question for Kelly, please enter that into the Q&A option on your screen. We will attempt to answer as many questions as possible, depending on the available time. If we do not answer your question, don't worry, you will receive a follow-up email to this webinar, and you will have the opportunity to ask it then. Today's webinar will also be recorded, and it will be shared with all registered attendees within a week. Now, please join me for welcoming Kelly Tracy.
Thank you so much, Rachel. I appreciate Rachel and her team up there at Virginia Annual Conference having me here, and hope that I can give everyone a little more confidence and a few ideas and some knowledge to help you use various forms of digital communication, even if you are in a small and or a rural church. I'm going to share my presentation here. And I've been on your side of enough webinars to know that people always would like to know if they can get the slides. I will absolutely be sharing those slides with you. I'm going to be asking a few questions and giving everyone the opportunity to give a little feedback throughout the presentation. To do so, I'm using a presentation tool called Mentimeter. So if you would like to be able to respond to a few questions along the way, you can open another tab on your browser or simply use your phone. On the left there, you see you can go to menti.com and enter that 8-digit code. You also can use your phone to scan the QR code. That will also take you directly where you need to go. I'll leave that there for just a moment for everybody. And you also see the join information at the top of the screen that will pop up when there is a question or an opportunity to share. So first of all, let me know, how do you feel about your church's digital communications right now? On a scale from what digital communications to everything's awesome. So if you're logged in on menti.com, you should see these 4 options and have an opportunity to tap the one that best describes your situation. Okay, I've got a little bit of everything here. Most people are saying it's okay, it could be better. A few folks are trying but struggling. A couple of people say everything's awesome. So, you know, maybe you've got some ideas to share as we go along. And we've got one response of what digital communications. So if that's where you are, I hope I can inspire you to try a few things. All right, real quickly, kind of our goals. Well, my goals for you after this webinar. My goals are that you're able to connect your digital communications to your church's overall mission and vision. These things definitely ought to be connected and not living in different buckets. I want you to be able to streamline and optimize your church emails, particularly any e-newsletters you do. If you're not using text messaging yet, I hope you will discover a bit about how you could use text messaging to improve the reach of your communications, especially to members who can't or don't do much online. And finally, identify a couple strategies to get more engagement on your Facebook, if that's something you're already using. So I had asked Rachel to share a survey a few weeks ago to kind of get an idea of the baseline here. And I'll be sharing a few numbers from that survey throughout. But when I asked, just in your own words, what challenges do you have at your church with digital communication? The sort of themes that emerged over and over were, you have a lot of older members who either can't or just have no interest in digital communication. A few people said we're having trouble just getting our church members to use the platforms that we're sharing our information on. A lot of folks talked about not having a lot of time, mental energy, money to spend on communications, and wanting to be sure you're using those as wisely as you can. Be sure you're stewarding those into methods that are actually going to work. And finally, a lot of folks said, we've got Facebook or some other social media, but we're not really getting a lot of engagement there. It's not doing us a lot of good. So these are concerns that I'll be addressing through the webinar. So I want to start off by just kind of putting digital communications into context. As you think about your church's communication strategy overall, and if you're thinking, I don't really have a communication strategy, I'm going to give you a few quick thoughts on what that could look like. Whoops, I got excited. I'm sorry. So when I say communication strategy, what I mean by that is a proactive plan that aligns your messaging, what you're saying through your newsletter, your bulletin, your Facebook, your text messages, aligning that with the goals and the vision and the value of your church, the values of your church. So being sure those things are connected. When people see messages from your church, they should be able to discern from those messages who your church is. And being sure that your messaging is tailored to your church's identity and your church's context, where you are, what kind of church you are. So when we think about communication strategy, we're thinking about, what are you communicating? What exactly are you sharing with folks? To whom are you communicating? And there's probably more than one answer. When you're communicating and how you're communicating. And again, when you're trying to figure out where to start, if you don't really have much of a communications plan, look at any sort of value statement or vision statement or mission statement your church may already have. And think about being sure that your communication supports that. Is this message that you're sending out furthering your church's mission? Is it reflecting your church's values? And another thing to think about in a very broad sense with communication is keeping it consistent. So when people see something or read something from your church, they're like, yeah, that's fill in the blank UMC. I can tell if I'm reading this or from looking at it who that is. So that might mean using a consistent logo, using the same colors over and over, using the same fonts. And then by your voice, just what's your church's personality? Are you like a really sort of down home, small town, we're your neighbor, you know, I saw you at the diner for breakfast yesterday. Is that kind of your vibe? Are you a little more high church, a little more formal? You know, show that in the way that your church expresses itself. And then the churches whose sort of visual identity are on the screen here. The first one, Peachtree Road, is like a big downtown church in Atlanta that is very high church. Resurrection, of course, we're all familiar with. Very big church, but maybe not quite as formal. And then the last one, Centenary, is a more mid-sized church down here in Georgia. So you don't have to be a super big church with a huge budget to have communications that consistently express who you are. All right, got a question for you. And full disclosure, besides being a cradle Methodist myself, my husband, I start to say I was a preacher's wife. Sounds like I'm not married to him anymore. My husband spent about 15 years in ministry. So I kind of think I know how people might answer this question. But have you ever heard church members, when there's an event or a piece of news or information you're trying to share, do you ever have people say, I never heard about that. Oh, I didn't know about that. I didn't know that event was that evening. I didn't know that this person was leaving this position. I didn't know that. Let's just do a survey real quick. Going back to Mentimeter, have you ever heard someone say that, even though you shared that information? You shared that information more than once. Nobody's clicking no. What the heck? Oh, wow. All right, that one person who clicked no, I think you got to do a tell-all here. You got to tell us your secrets. Because for most of us, it's like, yes, I told them. And I told them. Oh, two people gotta share your secrets. Okay. Is there any way we as communicators can eliminate this situation? There's not. Some people just aren't paying attention. But there's things we can do to reduce this situation. There's, I think, different studies that have different numbers on this, but one number you hear a lot is that people have to hear a message at least 3 times before it sticks. So if you need people to know something, tell them more than once. Tell them through different mediums, both digital communication and, you know, analog, old-fashioned communication. So if you put it on your Facebook, well, number one, some people won't see it even if they're on Facebook because the algorithm just won't decide to show them. Put it on your Facebook, put it in your newsletter, mention it during your announcements, put it in the bulletin. You just gotta tell people more than once. In addition to that, you need to know which communication mediums your church members prefer to use. If you put everything on Instagram, but most of your church doesn't use Instagram, I mean, you can tell them if you want to see the information, you got to go to Instagram. But if they're not already there, they're not likely to go there. If you've got people who just don't understand how to use the technology, you might offer them help, offer like a after church help session where you show them how to access it on their phone or whatever. But ultimately, you have to know where they already are and where they're going to get information. For some of your members, that might not be a single thing that's digital. You might need to put in a paper newsletter and mail it to their house and announce it from the pulpit and put it in the bulletin. That may be what you need to do. But use multiple media and know which ones your people are actually going to pay attention to. And finally, consider both your internal audience and your external audience. Oh, I thought I had one more slide on that. I was wrong. So especially when you think about digital communications, when you think about your website, any social media platforms your church is using, people who are looking for a church home or even just looking for a church to visit, if they're passing through on vacation or something, they're going online to look. They're going online to figure out what churches are in the area, what their vibe or their personality is, what kind of programs they offer. So even if your internal audience, your congregation, isn't online very much, you want to have some sort of presence there for people to find you and to discover you. So yeah, since my husband's not a pastor anymore, when my family moved to a new town and wanted to look for a church, we didn't just open a phone book because we don't have one. But we didn't just go to random Methodist churches until we found one we liked. We got online and looked at their websites and looked at their Facebook and saw what kind of programs they have for children and youth, because we have kids. What time is worship? What's this church's sort of, or their values? So you need to think about communicating to your congregation, but also communicating externally. All right, so we're going to go through 3 different forms of digital communication. As was mentioned, we're going to start with email, then we're going to look at texting, and finally social media. Of those 3, social media is the one where you need to think the most about an external audience. Email and texting, you might have people who are visiting your church who sign up for your email or sign up to get your texts. So I asked in the survey before the webinar, everyone to say, what % of your congregation would you guess uses email? And I don't know if anyone actually had a number, but I asked you to make your best guess. And here's what you said. And there was a 4th option that was almost none. Nobody picked that. So it sounds like for most of you, over half of your congregation is using email. And then I also asked how you send mass emails to your congregation. Some people don't. Some of you use an email marketing platform. Some of you use your church management software. And some of you just use your Outlook, your Gmail, and so on. So if you're not already using a specialized platform to send out your emails, or if you're just not sending emails at all at this point, I want to strongly recommend that you use email marketing. Makes it sound like we're a business, but basically this is like your MailChimp, your Constant Contact services that help you collect and sort email addresses and send out your emails. So some benefits to using one of these services or platforms: it helps you organize your email addresses. So if you want to send something just to the parents of youth, you can have a sub list for that, and you can just very easily assign people to them. You want to send something to your United Methodist Men, you have a sub list for that. Going to help you do that. Using one of these platforms makes it easy for people to unsubscribe. Not that you want people to unsubscribe, but there's a lot of there's laws and rules around sending out bulk email, and people need to be able to unsubscribe easily. This is going to automate that process for you. Might make it a little easier to dodge people's spam filters. It's going to let you schedule and automate the emails. So if you finish the email on a Sunday evening, but you want to go out first thing Tuesday morning, click, 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 it's going to do it for you. Also, a lot of these platforms will give you some analytics. So by that, I mean, they'll tell you, hey, you sent out 200, you sent this email to 200 people. Here's how many people it bounced back from. The address wasn't good. Here's how many people opened the email. That could be useful information to have. So, as far as what platform to use, I talked to our local church services folks at UMCOM, and they said MailChimp is the one they recommend the most. They do have a free level of service. Doesn't do a whole lot, but if your budget's really tight and you have a really small church, that might do everything you need. There's also the next two tiers are like 13 a month and 20 a month. And some people said you use your church management software. And if your church management software includes that feature, you already paid for it. Go for it. So that was a little bit about how to send out your emails. So let's think a little now about what's in those emails to engage your audience. Because if you're like me, you get a lot of emails. And it can be really easy to overlook some things, or to be going delete, 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 delete all the junk, and you could accidentally delete your church email. Oops. So let's talk about a few ways to engage the people who are getting your email, how to get them interested, make them want to read the email. One thing you can do is think about your subject line. That's the first thing they're going to see. Who it's from and the subject line. Make them curious. For example, if you got an email with the subject line, Holy Week services, or the subject line, 3 reasons we celebrate Holy Week, which one are you most likely to open? Go ahead and choose one. Yeah, so some people, especially if you have been thinking, hey, what time are my church's Holy Week services? I need to know that information. That might be enough to make you curious. But 3 reasons our church celebrates Holy Week, that might make you think, oh, what are the 3 reasons? Yes, we celebrate Holy Week, but what's the purpose? I'm curious. I want to see what my church is going to say here. And you see article titles like this with numbers in them on the internet so much because we like lists. Our brain likes to think there's an easy way to organize something, like 3 reasons. I'm going to skip over the other example here in interest of time. But a few things you might do with your subject line are try to pique people's interest, give them a list, ask a question. Your subject line might offer some advice to help them. It might create a sense of urgency. There's only 2 days to register. Some other ways to catch people's attention might be to throw an emoji or 2 in there to kind of make it eye-catching. Depending on the platform or the program you're using, you might be able to insert the email recipient's name. So everyone who gets that email, their first name will be in the subject line. So that's a few ways you can get people just to open your email. Second thing to think about is make that email personal. Stock images are very helpful in many situations. Real people are more interesting. The images on the left side of your screen came from, I think I got those from Pexels, pexels.com. It's a free stock image site. The ones on the right under real people, I pulled from churches' Facebook pages. So if you see just some nice people who look very posed, they very clearly are models who are posing for a stock image photographer, that's not going to make me think about my church. If I see faces that I recognize, people that I know from Sunday morning, that's more likely to get my attention. Of course, you want to be sure people are okay with their photos being used. This goes for anywhere you might use people's photos, including your website, your social media. Especially for kids, you want to be sure you have a photo release on file to use their photos. But anytime you can use real people from your church, it's going to be more engaging, both in emails as well as anywhere else you're going to use photos. My next point is just to be brief. I'm a Gen Xer, and I would guess that most people my age and younger are reading most of their emails on their phone. You don't want to scroll through, a novel of a church newsletter. People expect short, punchy information when they're online. So be brief. If you need to give more information, you can have a link to your website or to a social media post or a sign-up form, but be brief. And finally, in your newsletter, include calls to action. So a call to action is when you're telling an audience what you want them to do. So think about the last time you saw a commercial or just a billboard or her radio ad for like an accident attorney or something. Call now. I don't know if you all have Ted Nugent. I thought he was a Georgia thing. Then when I lived in Maryland, I heard his commercials too. I think it's like a national injury lawyer firm. One call, that's all. Call today. So tell people what you want them to do next. You can be less creepy than personal injury lawyer commercials, but tell people, sign up for online giving, contact the pastor, register for VBS, subscribe to our newsletter. Tell them what to do now that they have this information. And you'll see each of these calls to action has a big blue word or two at the beginning. It's an action verb. Here's what to do now. So give people information, but then tell them what they should do next. Okay. I know there's folks monitoring the Q&A. I don't know if we want to pause now before I move on and see if there's any burning questions about email.
Kelly, we did just have a question come in, and they were asking, to them, it felt like this process might be time consuming, especially if you have a small church, you don't have any staff, and you're also employed part-time, and folks that just don't understand, how to do a lot of this. Do you have any recommendations for somebody who's in that kind of situation to just make this a little more simple?
Well, as I'll get into in the last part where I talk about social media, there's a lot of ways to digitally communicate, and you don't have to do all the things. You don't have to do it all. Do what makes sense for your church. One thing I would mention, if you've got an older church and they're not interested in digital communication, if you do want to attract new people to your church, they're likely to be looking online for information. So I would say a basic website would be where I'd start. And I'm giving you a resource list at the end that does include information about local church services at United Methodist Communications. We've got folks who will help you set up a website, help you set up your social media. For churches that need it, there's grants available to help you with that as well. So I'm going to give you a lot of ideas here and pick what is practical to implement for you. I hope that's helpful. Next thing I want to talk about is SMS. Gosh, now I forget what it even stands for. Short message system. Anyhow, text messaging. I'm going to use SMS because sometimes tools that you might use to do this use SMS. It means text messaging. So I asked folks before the webinar, what percentage of your congregation would you guess uses text messaging? And it looks like most people said either more than half or about half. And I think that for people who don't do much digital at all, if they do one thing, text messaging is likely to be it. And let me go back one actually. And I didn't put the numbers here, but I also asked if you were currently using text messaging in your church. And I want to say about a third maybe said you were. But if you're not using text messaging right now, I'd like to just give you some reasons to consider it. So first of all, let me ask you a question. What do you do when your phone makes that whatever noise your phone makes when you get a text? That little ding, or mine makes the bamboo sound. But when your phone makes that noise, what do you do? Two of you have good boundaries around your electronic device use, and four of you do. Five of you do. You are models for me and for many people. Most of us, though, we go, huh, what's that? So some reasons to think about using texting for your church are people check it. People look at them. On average, and there's different sources that give different numbers, but most sources will say that if you send out an email from your organization, not like a person-to-person email, but from a business or an organization, you'll get an open rate of maybe 20%. You're doing pretty good if 20% of people open your email. If you send a text, about 98% of people open it. Also, it's one of the few forms of communication where people still allow push notification. By push notification, I mean your phone makes that ding and you get that little number by the text message badge. Probably you could set your phone to ding when you get an email, to ding when one of your friends posts on Facebook. Most of us don't, though, because it's too much dinging and it's very distracting. But most people have a ding for their text messages. So it might not be as flashy. It may not feel like, oh, text messaging is the cutting edge. But it's darn effective. Some different ways you could use texting in your church. You can welcome newcomers. If you get a mobile number from visitors, for example, you could have a message set up that you send to them to thank them for coming and, let them know some other things you've got going on. You could use texting to communicate with small groups within your church, classes, committees. Some churches have devised ways to take prayer requests via text. Like they have volunteers who monitor and receive the texts and send back a prayer to the person. If you have any community events, like you have a fall festival or an Easter egg hunt or something where you're inviting people who aren't necessarily part of your church, if you can get numbers from them, that's a way you can follow up and communicate with them. Parents, because I can tell you, even when I'll probably know this, you got teenagers, they don't tell their parents what's going on. They don't know they're not gonna like voluntarily be like, hey, here's when the youth group meeting is. Yeah, you gotta communicate with parents. Just like email, there are platforms that you can use that will help you to automate this. Can save you a lot of time, let you make groups automatically like you do for email. Make it easy for people to opt out of texts. Again, there's a lot of laws around that. Using a system versus just doing it on your phone means if people reply, it doesn't go to everybody. It doesn't become like this massive, crazy group text that won't stop making noises. And some folks do church texts on their personal phone, but especially like I said, having lived the pastor spouse life, I'm a big fan of that work-life balance. So, some tools you can use, MailChimp. You can pay a little extra and do texting through them. There's a service through the church called Connect. I'll give the link to you in the resources at the end. But the text messaging service that we offer that works together with a platform called Twilio. You have to pay for Twilio, but they also offer grants for nonprofits that you can look into. Again, your church management software might have a way to do this. So if it does, it's already paid for. We love that. A few caveats about texting. When you're asking people to give you their phone number, be very clear about how you're going to use their phone numbers. Say, we're going to text you no more than one time a week with reminders about children's events if they're signing up for parent text or something. Be true to the promise. If you said you'll get 1 or 2 texts a week, don't send them 5. And just know that just like emails, if you use it too much, people will opt out. Okay, I think, yep, that's the end of texting. Let me see real quick if there's any questions about that. And again, if you're like, no one texts in my church, this doesn't make any sense. You don't have to do all the things.
We do not currently have any texting questions.
Okay. Well, I will move on then to the last topic, which is social media. I asked people what percentage of your congregation you would guess uses social media. And here's the numbers. Again, nobody said almost none. So most people said almost all, more than half, or about half. And like I said before, with social media, keep in mind that that's a great way to communicate with an external audience as well. So even if you're in that sort of about half place where you're going, half of my church would see Facebook posts, but half of them wouldn't. There's people who aren't under your roof already who you might be able to reach this way. And just to reinforce what I've been saying, there are so many social media platforms. You don't have to be on all of them. You can be on as many as makes sense for you. What makes sense for you would be based on the makeup of your congregation and your community, and very much on how much time you have. If you are able to find any volunteers in your congregation to help with social media, amazing. If you're not, then if it's all you, figure out what you can manage. If you try to be on 5 different platforms, but you hardly ever post on any of them because it's too much for one person to manage, don't try and do that. Most churches probably that are anywhere on social media are on Facebook. Like any of these platforms, Facebook has its pros and its cons, its good things and its bad things. It definitely is the social media network with the largest reach. Most current numbers tell us 68% of American adults are on Facebook. And Facebook also has the widest range of ages. So you see here what percentage of 18 to 29, 30 to 49, 50 to 64, and 65 plus folks are on Facebook. So if you are going to use one social media platform, I would strongly recommend Facebook. Oh, and by the way, if your church is not already on Facebook, it doesn't cost anything. It doesn't cost anything. So we love that. It's a deal. If you were going to add a second platform, you don't have to, but if you wanted to, the next one we would recommend in addition would be Instagram. 47% of American adults are on Instagram. The numbers tend to trend a little bit younger, but not as young as like TikTok. I mean, my mother-in-law is on Instagram. One nice thing about Instagram is it gets 4 times the engagement of Facebook. By engagement, I mean people click that little heart, they leave a comment, they share things. I guess because of the visual nature, people are more likely to react to something on Instagram. So that would be number 2. If you only have enough spoons, as it were, for one platform, just do Facebook. And like I said, engagement is getting people to do something when they see your post. Like, comment, share, all that we call engagement. We want to encourage engagement. I'm just going to stick to Facebook because I think I had asked most of you if you have social media, if you're a church, it was Facebook. We want engagement on Facebook. You've probably heard about the algorithm. It's this mysterious thing nobody completely understands. It sounds like something Mark Zuckerberg's in his mad scientist lab coming up with a weird formula to determine who sees what on Facebook. Nobody completely understands the exact details of it. And different platforms have different algorithms. But one thing that you do know is the more engagement your posts have, the more likely your posts are to appear to more people. So I follow my church on Facebook. Facebook doesn't show me every single post though. But if more people were clicking like, leaving comments, sharing those posts, I'd be more likely to see them. So it's sort of like turbo boosts your posts to get engagement. So how do we get engagement? What are we supposed to post to get engagement? So, open question. What kind of stuff do you post on your church's Facebook page? Is this one working? Because I'm not seeing any response. Okay, some people are putting in the comments too. Daily meditation, upcoming events, good. Prayers, prayer requests, events, scriptures, weekly happenings, services, activities, fun info. I like fun. Live stream, absolutely. Pictures, photos, love it. Ministry highlights, opportunities for mission. Okay, very cool. So I want you to post when that service is at the live stream. I want you to post some inspirational quotes, upcoming events, what's coming soon. You need people to know about that stuff. Absolutely. But I want you to think about adding in a few posts that invite more of a two-way conversation with the people on the other side of that screen. A few examples, ask questions. How can we pray for you? How can your church pray for you this week? We have a hymn sing next Sunday. What's your favorite hymn? Who do you think will win the Super Bowl? Do you think Taylor Swift will make it to the Super Bowl on time? They can even be like silly questions. What are you bringing to the potluck next week? So people see a question, they want to answer it. You're going to get those comments. That's going to up your engagement. That's going to make the algorithm happy. Besides posting, be sure you're going back and looking at the comments and replying to them as appropriate. Whether it's answering a question in the comments or just saying, oh, I can't wait to have your famous potato salad at the potluck. Everyone loves it. Let people know that if they say something, you'll answer. One more great way to get engagement. This is something that builds relationships, it builds loyalty, it creates an emotional response in people, and it increases engagement on social media. And that is stories. So put those announcements up there, but put some stories too. And they don't have to be, you know, Pulitzer Prize winning things. And I don't know what happened to my words there. That should say internal and external audiences. But think about what do your audiences care about? What do some of our different ministries do? What do some of the volunteers in our church do? And most of all, people, there's a lot of bad news on the internet. There's a lot of drama and nonsense and stressful stuff on social media. People need to hear something good. People need a story that's going to give them a good word, a story of transformation. How is God working through your church? What are some specific things you can talk about that are ways God is working through your church to serve not just the people in your church, but their larger community? A few quick examples. I'm trying to keep an eye on time, but these will be in the slides you can get from me as well. But not just, hey, we're packing food bags this week, but hey, this is a ministry we do. Maybe you haven't heard about it, but this is what we do. And here's a picture of some of our church members packing food, or here's what we learned about, the kids learned about in their Sunday school class yesterday. Here's a picture of them doing an activity. Here's the chaos behind the scenes at the youth waffle dinner. But people like stories. People connect with stories, and they're likely to react to stories. So, as I said earlier, I want to give you a lot of ideas today on things you can do to strengthen your church's digital communication. And as I've said, you don't have to do all of them. What I've created for you is an action plan, and you can go to this link, or you can scan this QR code, and I've got a two-page PDF for you, 2 sides if you print it, I guess. So I've got a list of some different actions you could take in the next week, the next month, to amp up your digital communications a bit. And I've also got a list of links to some of the resources I've mentioned, to some articles from the Resource UMC website that will go in a little more depth. And I'll be sure that this link gets sent out to everyone as well. But on the action plan, you'll just see a few ideas like this, some things you might do next. Choose 3 of them. Choose 2 of them. If you're pulling your hair out, choose 1 of them. Just try something, or learn a little more about something. See what might be a good fit for your church. I hope that I gave you a buffet and you pick the food that you want to eat and that you're not allergic to tonight. A couple more resources I want to point out to you quickly. We have recently refurbished our United Methodist Communications Learning Center. We have lots and lots of courses that you can take on your own time. All of these pure e-learning courses are free, and you can go to umctraining.org to find those. We offer a few paid courses throughout the year, and we actually have one starting next week that I'm teaching called Revitalize Your Church's Social Media. You see a link and QR code here to go directly to that course. It's a 4-week course. Every week there's content to read, videos to watch on your own schedule, discussion boards to share with your colleagues. Every week there's also 2 1-hour Zoom sessions where we go a little deeper into some topics. It's impossible to find a time when everyone can make it to those, so those are optional, and we do record and post the videos of those. If you need any CEUs, we do offer 2 CEUs on completion, and I talked to my boss man and got permission to give you a coupon code. So this is normally a $39.99 course. If you use the coupon code Virginia, $10 off. And this starts Monday, so next Monday. So the registration for that actually will be closing on Thursday. Let's see, what else I got here? If you would like the slides from this webinar, there's a QR code and URL for those. And if there's any question that comes to your mind later or we didn't get to, please send me an email. My job is to help local churches to communicate and use communication to make disciples for the world. So I am very happy to help you. I went a little QR code crazy here, but the very, very, very last one. And I'll see that this gets sent to you later as well. Very helpful to me and to the training team to have feedback and know what people found useful about our training, what they wish we would do differently next time. So 4 questions, only 4 questions. I like to keep it short and sweet, but I greatly appreciate your feedback, and I'm going to hop over here to the Q&A. Info for the action plan again. Absolutely. Let me go back There you go. Whoever was asking for the action plan, there it is. And Rachel, I'll just send you an email when we're done here with all of these links. So if you want to just share them out to everybody at once.
Yes, I do want to let everybody know that we will share the slides that you've seen tonight. We'll share the recording, and I'll also try to highlight some of the key links in here as well when we follow up with everyone. And that should be within a week. And if anyone else has any other questions they would like to put in the chat, we can definitely share the bit.ly links. That's not a problem. And our team did answer quite a few of the questions while you were talking as well. And then in our follow-up email, we'll have a survey too, where you'll be prompted to ask additional questions of the Board of Communications team if there's something that wasn't answered. And you can certainly have Kelly help you as well. You received her email too. So we will try to take all of this information and kind of tidy it up and put it into an email to everyone who registered today. So you have plenty of opportunity to look at things again, ask additional questions, that sort of thing. Kelly, could you talk a moment about the local church services team that you have at UMCOM and just what, because I know some folks, you know, it is a lot of information. They do find it a little bit overwhelming, but you do have a team there that can work with some folks one-on-one at their church if they need some additional support.
We do. We have, and I will find the link real quick and see if I can just share that live right now. But our local church services team can help you if you just don't have a website or your website's a hot mess and you need to restart it. Just do a clean slate with it. They can give you guidance with getting your website set up. If you don't have Facebook, they can help you set that up. Basically, they are the one-on-one help folks for local church needs. I'm seeing if there's a way for me to just drop that link in there. Can I ask a question?
If you want to send that to me, Kelly, and then I can put that in my email to everyone as well. So they'll have that team's contact information if they feel like they really just need some support, you know, in a specific area, they'll know who to reach out to. That would be wonderful.
And probably if you Google UMC local church services, that would probably get you there, but I will share that link with Rachel to share out to everyone.
Excellent. Yes, but we will be following up with everybody in the next week, and feel free to just reach out if you have additional questions. And we'd be glad to have Kelly or someone from our team help answer those questions for you. Well, at this point, I would like to close our webinar. And I would like to thank everyone for joining us tonight for our digital communications webinar. And again, would really like to thank Kelly Tracy from United Methodist Communications for coming to present to us today. Just to reiterate, all attendees will receive a follow-up email within a week that will share a link to view this webinar again. You will also receive a CEU certificate, a survey, and then just a variety of other links, as well as the slides for this presentation too. So we do thank everyone for participating in this event. We will also have a webinar on Wednesday at 1 o'clock about websites and how UMCOM can build a website for you. So if you're interested in that, there's information on the VA UMC website to register for that. And both of these webinars will be loaded to the VA UMC YouTube channel too after they both are completed. So eventually anybody can access them and watch them whether you registered or not. So And at this time, I would like Reverend Bill McClung to close us in prayer. And thanks again, everyone.
Let us be in an attitude of prayer. Holy God, you who crafted the great story of redemption and love, we thank you for this time together to think of the ways that we share your story with the world. We're reminded that on Pentecost, the Holy Spirit enabled the disciples to tell the story in a variety of ways to a variety of people. Continue to guide us as we seek ways through modern communication to be evangelists today. May the work that we do in this area bear great fruit for the kingdom, to share the story with those who need it the most. Be with us as we end this time together. Bless us, fill us, use us. In your holy name we pray.
And thank you, everyone, for coming today, and look to hear more from us. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.